Podcasts are pretty common. So what makes the Uncommon podcast uncommon? Well, it's all in our name. I'm your host, Noah Weiss, and we at Uncommon Sports Group understand the unique pressures and temptations that come with a career in the sport industry. We provide uncommon training that helps you successfully navigate common challenges. Hit the follow button on this podcast. Follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn. Check out our website and become uncommon. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Uncommon Podcast. I'm your host, Noah Weiss. I'm excited to be joined today by USG Senior Engagement Associate Mikey Carpenter and Anissa Lightner, who currently is a licensed realtor with the Diner Realty here in Minneapolis, but previously spent 18 years as the Director of Career Services and Relations for Intercollegiate Athletics at the University of Minnesota. How are you both doing today?
I'm doing really well. Thanks for having us, Noah.
Doing awesome, Noah. Yeah, thanks for having us, and just excited to talk about this topic that I know Anissa and I have a huge passion and heart for.
Mm-hmm. In this episode, Mikey and Anissa will be answering for us the question: do I need to write a thank you note? If you have not had a chance yet, go check out our last episode with two of our USG network members, Colin Coffee and Shania Richburg. You don't want to miss out on that, as Colin and Shania share how the USG 2021 summer mission trip to Kenya impacted their walk with Christ. Mikey and Anissa, let's start by simply answering that question. If I'm a young professional or a college student, do I need to write a thank you note to a present leader of the sport industry?
I would say for sure, you definitely need to. Many times I think that people think, well, I'll just send them a text or I'll send them an email. And then that just gets lost sometimes in the shuffle, because we all know we're getting, 20, 30, sometimes 100 emails a day. You're going to remember when you're the person that stands out, separates from the pack, and you're the person that took the time to write a thank you note.
Absolutely agreed with Anissa 100%. I think it's a must, whether it's a cold reach out, whether it's a post-interview, post-informational interview, career fair visit. Maybe you meet somebody in terms of make a connection at a sporting event or a game. Regardless of the context or situation, I think from a standpoint of, as Anissa pointed out, really it shows a level of depth and authenticity that an email or a text might not provide. And I think at the same time, it's a key differentiator and really resonates with individuals in terms of them being able to remember you amidst a day-to-day where you're getting lots of emails, lots of texts, lots of other forms of communication. It separates itself from the pack.
Love both of those points. And I think one item I see commonly among young professionals and college students, especially being a recent college graduate in May, writing a thank you note doesn't seem like that big of a deal, right? We do an informational interview, we have a conversation with the professional, and it seems like that's enough, right? You say thank you, you leave. Just kind of share, what is the impact of writing a thank you note?
I think the impact is that time or moment in time has now passed. But the thank you note takes you right back to the actual encounter or personal interaction. And there's a book called The 7 Levels of Communication, and obviously face-to-face is the best way to communicate, but the handwritten note is right up there, following into that. It's one of those things that I didn't think it was that big of a deal, but my mom, she's the one that kind of instilled it into me, is you receive a gift, before you actually enjoy whatever gift or present that is, you take the time to write that. And I know it's old school, but it's something that people really value. And you're not going to probably go back and look at that text message, but you probably, I have a couple of handwritten notes that are on my desk still. And when I look at those, it brings me some joy to remember back to that encounter with that person.
Agreed with all of that. And I would say too, even with Anissa touching on time, we often say here just at USG and even from working through purpose-driven life, love is spelled Time. And I think you really can show love and care for others really just by taking, a little bit longer to do something, but it really shows, again, that depth, that authenticity that you really do care about the individual. Again, we often, as Anissa said, we don't remember the emails or texts that we got, but those handwritten notes often resonate to us. Because I think, one, because an individual took the time to be able to show that care, but like Anissa said too, it takes you back to this specific moment in time. And I think I'm always fond of those thank you notes that aren't just generic, but have that detail-oriented nature that reminds you of a specific moment, an experience, or generally speaking, just time that you had together.
Yeah, those are both, incredible points. Mikey, I love how you said love is spelled Time, and I think that is really kind of the essence of the thank you note. And, the current generation, kind of as I said, that I'm a part of, we grew up with technology, right? It's really the essence of how we live. It's our form of communication, emails, text messages, LinkedIn requests, social media. And I think the common thing is, well, I'll just send an email, I'll shoot a text. So kind of just give our students and our listeners, does a thank you note, does a thank you email have that same tangible effect as a thank you note?
The thank you email is important, especially for when you're interviewing for a job. Taking that time to send that on the day after, or the day of the interview or the next day, I think is key. Especially because if they're going to make a decision, they need to know your appreciation right then. But I would still take time to do the handwritten, tangible thank you note. It can only take the place a little bit. It can't really take the place because you have to, one, purchase the thank you notes. You need to take time to write something that is meaningful about it. You have to go and get a stamp and mail it. There's a lot of effort that goes into it, and it doesn't take it. The thank you email doesn't have the same effect.
Absolutely, and I'd say it's maybe not an either or, but like a both and. As Anissa mentioned, just amidst the hiring process, I know in the situations that I've been a part of in terms of applying for opportunities and going through that process and being vetted by HR, there was an expectation to do a thank you email, but I would always even try to bring some handwritten notes with me, even if I had to travel for the interview, so I could drop those off, at the post office, so they would get those as soon as possible. So they get the thank you email, and they see that, you care. But I think that the thank you note adds a differentiated level of intentionality that I think is often missed. So you think of, how many individuals would probably send a thank you email after they've made it to the final round of an athletics interview process? I would say the vast majority. How many would also in turn write a thank you note and deliver it in time while they're still vetting applicants? I would say very few. So I said differentiate a lot during this conversation, but I do feel that it helps set you apart from the pack, especially when you're in that final round and there's 2 or 3 individuals that all bring some incredible qualities to the table. But it's often said that people don't often remember what you did for them, but how you made them feel. And I think the thank you note, provides that positive feeling, just expressed in a unique old school mentality.
Yeah, Mikey and Anissa, appreciate, both of those points. And Mikey, I think you brought up the point of differentiating yourself. And I think the sport industry is competitive, if not one of the most competitive industries in really the whole job realm. And so you really have to be different from the pack. And I think that thank you note, as you both said, really does that. It shows intentionality. It shows that you care. And really anybody can send an email, but taking the time to write a note, especially in this generation of technology, it's a huge differentiating factor. And I appreciate both of you guys kind of sharing those different insights. And I think, a big thing that can be hard for young professionals, is really knowing what to say, right? You write a thank you note.
Yeah.
What do you say? So if you guys could just kind of dive into like what makes a good thank you note, what do you say, what's important, what makes you stand out in that thank you note, that'd be awesome.
So I'll preface this, what I'm going to say, into a little bit of a story. So when I was in college, I had to work a couple other jobs while I was going to school. And one of the jobs was serving at a restaurant. And I had never been a server before. And it was a very fancy fine dining restaurant where you wore the little tuxedos. And after I had the interview, I thought it went pretty well. I made a good connection, went home, wrote a handwritten thank you note for a serving job. And I actually got the job even though I had never been a server before. And there were other people that I was competing against that had serving experience. And I asked them why I got the job over some of the other people with experience. And they said, you were the only one that took the time to write a thank you note. And therefore, we figured if you cared enough for a serving position to write a note, that you would care about our members. So thinking about what you're actually going to say in that note, you're going to say something that is personally connected to the interview, whether it's or to the informational interview or to the career fair or whatever. You're going to say something about the personal connection you made with that person. And it could be related to something you learned, something that you're excited about in the position, but it needs to have that detail where they say, oh yes, that's something that we talked about. And so I think that that's kind of the key part of it, is being appreciative of the time that they took with you, a little bit of detail of something you learned or gained or that you're excited about the role, and then just closing it up just with your sincerity. I think you just have to be genuine in what you say.
Absolutely. I'd echo everything that Anissa touched on. I would say specificity is clear. I've seen a lot of thank you notes where it's just the generic one, that really just says, thank you so much, but there's no real intentionality there, specificity there. As Anissa touched on, I think, thinking through of just, what they said, whether it's through an interview process or career fair, when you've connected with somebody, what specifically stood out to you. I think of an example of like if somebody touched on work-life balance and that really resonated with you, like be as specific as possible and really sharing with that individual of how that word or that message really impacted you. Something that I try to do too is really keeping track of individual's favorite sports team. So sometimes in the corner, I might say, I know for Anissa, when I wrote her a note recently, I wrote "Go Packers" in the corner, knowing that that's one of her favorite teams. So little touch points like that to really show that you were listening, that you care about the individual. And I have a similar story that Anissa had, but this was with my twin brother, and he heard Rick Carlisle, who at the time was the head coach of the Dallas Mavericks, speak at the University of Virginia when my brother was a graduate assistant with the women's basketball program at the time. And he just sent him a handwritten note of appreciation, really, but with the specificity, right? Touching on specific elements of the talk that resonated with him. And he was like, oh, I'm sending this to an NBA coach. I'm probably not going to, hear back. And then it gets to the point where, he gets this call from a Dallas area code, and he picks up, and it's Rick Carlisle, head coach of the Dallas Mavericks. And, he didn't offer him a job on the spot or anything like that, but they were able to connect, and they were able to build an authentic relationship that went beyond the traditional, I think, like surface level relationships that are often in athletics. So they were able to build a relationship for about 6 to 8 months. And when an opportunity came about, obviously the NBA is a very difficult industry to get your foot in the door too. But because Johnny and Coach Carlisle had that relationship, Johnny was provided the opportunity to join them as an assistant video coordinator. So not every thank you note story is going to be like that one or Anissa's, but I do think there's enough credibility from these, case studies, if you will, of just individuals that, go that extra mile, but really just seeing doors open that otherwise might not have. But in closing too, I think just with in terms of content, I mentioned that specificity, but Anissa touched on this too, but I think even just having a sense of gratefulness, just valuing that individual's time, just being grateful that, they took the time to connect with you again at a career fair, for an informational interview, at a sporting event in some capacity, but really just being grateful that they took the time to connect with you. But again, and coming back to authenticity, really, not just, sending them a note to and even forgetting about them, but really building that relationship continually after that thank you note. Really, even whether or not you get the job or not, you never know what that individual could need from you in the future. At the same time, what you could do or serve them in the future. So I would say too, it's a great intentional way to differentiate yourself, but I think at the same time it takes intentionality post thank you note to be able to continue to steward that relationship well.
I love both of those stories, and I think really just for our listeners, those will hit home on the points of these do have an impact, right? And like you said, Mikey, it's not always going to be just like that, but I think those are just two great stories that kind of lay out, it does separate you from the rest of the body of people that are trying to apply for these jobs and are trying to get into the industry. So it's definitely, it seems, off the face of it, like it wouldn't be that big of a deal, right? But I think you guys have both proven through through this discussion today that it really can be. It can really have an incredible impact. So really appreciate that. And Mikey and Anissa, thank you for joining the podcast today. It was a pleasure to hear both of your insights on the topic of thank you notes, and I know your words will give future leaders of the sport industry the confidence to put this professionalism tip into action.
Thanks for having us, Noah.
Thanks so much, Noah.
If you want to get involved with Uncommon Sports Group and the mission that we are on to help you navigate the sport industry as followers of Christ, apply for our training experience on our website at uncommonsg.org. That's uncommonsg.org. Be sure to catch every new episode of the Uncommon Podcast on the second and last Thursday of every month. Until next time, we pray that you will strive to be uncommon by glorifying the name of God in whatever you may do, and we wish you all a happy Thanksgiving.